This video is going to be for a lash lift and tint, and then we'll also tint her eyebrows. So we'll do a brow lash and tint following the lash lift. And so the lash lift is like a perm on the lashes, and so we will perm a curl to her lashes so they're more visible from the front angle. Here I'm just cleaning the makeup that she has on her eyes off. You want to make sure that there's no mascara residue or eye makeup residue left in the area. I'll also be putting tape underneath of her eyes, and so I also want to make sure that everything is clean around her eyes so the tape will stick. The tape that we're going to use is going to be a surgical tape, and the purpose of it is to tack down her lower lashes so the solutions don't get onto the lower lashes. As soon as we get those taped down, we make sure that everything is in place. We'll go ahead and start forming. And the forms that we use are silicone forms, and they come in 3 different sizes. So I'll choose a size that I think is going to be appropriate based on the length of her lashes. And then I will start to size those to make sure that they're the right fit. Once they're the right fit, we'll use some of our rubberized glue to attach those forms to the base of her lash line just above those lashes. We'll do that on both sides. And after those are in place, we will start to form the lower lashes onto those forms. So we'll work from underneath, moving the lashes up onto the form. The rubberized glue sticks very well to the skin without being super tight, and so that way when we're ready, it'll come off nicely. Once those forms are in place, the next process will be about forming those lashes to the silicone form. We're going to add another little bit of glue to the top of that form, the same rubberized glue that we put underneath of it. We'll line that from the inside outside corner, and then we'll use that same glue to start attaching those lashes to the form. When you're attaching the lashes to the form, this will be the most tedious part of the entire process. You'll want to continue to move those lashes up onto the form using that rubberized glue to be able to make them stick straight. If they are off to the side or angled, your perm will actually create that curl or movement in the same exact direction of the hair. So it's very important that those hairs are not only straight, but attached in that curled motion up onto the form. If you choose a form that's too small, you will have a lash that will actually curl back on itself. If you choose a form that is too large for the lash line, then it could actually straighten that lash out. So if you've got a curly lash girl, a lot of times you will use a larger form to be able to straighten those lashes out, but for our straight lash girls, we're normally trying to create more of a curl than they had. Either way, curly lash or straight lash, what we're doing is trying to create a controlled curl, and that way what you see from the front makes those lashes look as long and pretty as possible. So don't get discouraged if that forming portion takes quite a bit. Just keep at it. Keep up with your glue. You can use the micro brushes. The sticks on those micro brushes are nice and firm. And so you can see here that I'll turn that over and actually use the other side of that. That firmness of the stick helps me to adhere those lashes to the form. Okay, and here we're finishing up the other eye. Again, we're forming those lashes so they're going straight up, just as you would imagine if you're going to curl your lashes with a lash curler. You want them to be up and forward facing, not off to the side. Some people think that it is beneficial to form them at an angle going sideways, but that actually decreases the visual length of the lash and makes them appear shorter. When we are lifting the lashes, the ultimate goal is for them to look long and curled, not off to the angle where it would take away from the length of that lash. Just going back through to make sure that all of those lashes are stuck on there. The perming solution also is applied with the micro brushes. You don't need a whole bunch of that. If your micro brush is covered in the perming solution just on the tip, on the sponge portion, you have plenty to do a normal lash line. And so we start at the base of the lashes and we work our way up to the tips of the lashes, going through and doing one eye at a time. Once you finish with that eye, then go ahead and get a new brush. Of course, we never want to double dip into our perming solution, so you always want to make sure that you get a new micro brush or micro sponge. Dip that into your perming solution before you move to the next eye. The cellophane is also applied starting underneath of the lash line, and that way you can kind of catch some of those lashes and pull them up and over the form before you lay the cellophane down above the eye. And that way you can help some of those lashes that may be a little shorter continue to move in the formed direction with the rest of the lashes. And then it's time to process. Your processing time will vary depending on the lashes. The thickness and the texture of the lashes will have a lot to do with how long you need to leave that on. If it is a curly lash, you'll use a shorter amount of time. If it is a thick, straight lash, you'll need a longer time. But that processing time varies somewhere between 8 minutes and 12 minutes. The average time that you'll leave that on is about 10 minutes for most of your guests. After that processing is done, I'm just taking a wet cotton round and wiping the perming solution product off. Again, I'm still working in that same motion, working from underneath of the form, the base of the lash, up to the tips of the lash to remove that perm solution. And I'll do that on one eye and then repeat it on the other eye. Once all of our perm solution is removed, we're going to use the same application process for our neutralizer. And so just like any other chemical process, you do need to neutralize it or it will continue to work. So you do need to move quickly in between here using those same micro sponges and the same amount of neutralizer as you did your perm solution. As long as that micro sponge tip is covered, you have enough to be able to do that entire eye. So again, we're going to work from the base of the lashes up to the tips of the lashes, utilizing that stick to be able to help you move that product across the lash line effectively. We will again cover with our cellophane for the neutralizing process, and that neutralizing process will be 10 minutes. Once the neutralizing process is done, we'll use that same removal method. So we'll use our wet cotton rounds to remove the neutralizer from that lash line, and then we are ready to go. So here I've already taken the forms off of her lash line because we are going to move into the tint. So after all of that neutralizer has been removed, we're going to make sure that the area is clean. We're going to make sure that it's dry. And then we'll also replace the tape because up until this point we have taped her lower lashes down. And once we move into the lash tint, of course we want to also tint the lower lashes at the same time. So we'll remove that tape and then we'll replace that tape. And when we replace that tape, we'll place it underneath of the lash line so we can also place tint on the lower lash line. Alright, so here we're reapplying that tape again. Unlike the first time where we were taping down the lash line so we didn't get that chemical on it, this time we're going to place those lashes underneath of her lower lash line, exposing those lower lashes. After the tape is in place on both eyes and we start the actual tinting process, her eyes will remain closed, and so that tint is going to be applied from above. We won't have her open her eyes again until we are completely finished. Our mixing ratio for our brow and lash tint is 1:1. So half of that is going to be our developer and half of that is actually going to be our pigment. So It mixes very nicely. It's a gel form, so it stays where you want it to stay. And here we're going to again work from the base of the lash line to the tips, but we're going to push it through the lower lashes. So we'll get the top lashes, pushing it through to make sure that those lower lashes get tinted as well. And that's why that tape needs to be underneath, so we don't stain the skin underneath of those eyes. We'll repeat that process on the other eye, and then those can start to develop. The lashes are going to take longer than the brows, and that's why we do the lashes first. And so that way, while the lashes are developing, we can start the brow process, and then we'll remove the brow process while the lashes are still developing. All right, now we've gone ahead and mixed our brow tint. We're going to use a different color. She is a blonde, so we're using a lighter color on her brows, so they are more natural looking. And for the brows, we're going to make sure that we are careful to get all of those hairs. You'll see that we're going to change directions and angles with our application, trying to make sure that we get all of those hairs all the way down to the base. But you do want to be careful that we're not just pushing our tint on to the skin. Our tinting time for the brows is pretty short, so we're only going to do 3 minutes time frame on those brows. So by this time we've been tinting the lashes for a few minutes already, and so we're going to go ahead after the 3 minutes tint time for the brows, go ahead and remove that, and we still have a few minutes before those lashes are ready to come off. Our tint time for our lashes is going to be 8 to 10 minutes, and so we do still have plenty of time to be able to work both of those brows effectively, cleaning those before we have to move and worry about the lashes. All right, now we're ready to remove that tape. We'll remove the tape from underneath of the eyes, which will also have that excess tint on it from where we pushed that through both of those lash lines. Go ahead and take those off and throw them away before we rinse. And then once we start to rinse that lash line, we'll be left with a pretty clean area underneath the skin. At this point, we're just going to rinse the lash line with our wet cotton round to remove any of that solution that is left over. And then as soon as those are rinsed and dried, I do like to go through just with a smaller tool, perhaps another micro sponge or even sometimes a Q-tip, just to make sure that we've gotten everything off from underneath of that lash line before they go home, so we don't have any staining underneath of there. Gives them a nice clean look. We've got a much darker lash that's now curled in a pretty little pattern, and also a naturally colored brow tint.